Emily Johnson was born on a chilly autumn morning in a small town nestled between rolling hills and dense forests. The town was quiet, with a single main street lined with local shops and cafes. It wasn't a place where big dreams usually took root, but from the moment Emily first held a crayon in her tiny hand, it was clear she was destined for something special. As a toddler, Emily was fascinated by colors. Her mother often told the story of how she would sit for hours in her high chair, mesmerized by the bright hues of her toy blocks. When she was just 3 years old, Emily's parents gifted her a set of crayons and a large pad of paper. It was meant to keep her entertained while they did chores around the house, but it quickly became apparent that this was no ordinary distraction. Emily would sit at the kitchen table, her face a picture of concentration, as she filled page after page with colorful scribbles. To her parents, they were just that, scribbles, but to Emily, each line and swirl had meaning. As she grew older, Emily's drawings became more complex. By the time she started kindergarten, she could already draw recognizable animals, trees, and people. Her teachers noticed her talent and encouraged her parents to nurture it. Emily's room soon became a gallery of her creations, with drawings taped to the walls and stacked in neat piles on every available surface. At 7, Emily's parents enrolled her in her first formal art class. It was held at a small community center not far from their home, and Emily was thrilled. She loved everything about the class: the smell of the paints, the feel of the brushes in her hand, the way the colors came to life on the paper. Her teacher, Mrs. Thompson, was a kind and patient woman who saw Emily's potential immediately. She encouraged Emily to experiment with different mediums: watercolors, pastels, charcoal, and to try new techniques. Emily's love for drawing was no longer just a hobby, it was becoming a central part of who she was. Her passion for art was unwavering, and she dedicated every spare moment to it. Her friends would often invite her to play outside, but Emily would decline, choosing instead to sit on her porch with her sketchbook, capturing the world around her. She found beauty in the simplest things: the curve of a leaf, the way sunlight played on the surface of a pond, the shadows cast by tall trees. By the time Emily reached middle school, her talent was undeniable. Her art teacher, Mr. Carter, was a gruff but kind-hearted man who had been teaching for over 30 years. He had seen many students come and go, but Emily stood out. He was impressed not just by her skill, but by her dedication. While other students doodled absent-mindedly in their notebooks, Emily worked with intent and purpose. She had a vision, and she was determined to bring it to life. "Emily, you have a gift," Mr. Carter told her one afternoon after class, "but talent alone isn't enough. You have to work hard, stay focused, and never stop learning. If you do that, there's no limit to what you can achieve." His words stuck with her. Emily knew she had to keep pushing herself, even when it was difficult, and there were times when it was difficult. As she got older, balancing school, friendships, and her art became more challenging. There were days when she doubted herself, days when she wondered if she was wasting her time, but every time she picked up a pencil or a paintbrush, all her doubts faded away. Drawing was as natural to her as breathing, and she couldn't imagine her life without it. High school was both a time of growth and challenge for Emily. She continued to excel in her art classes, and her teachers encouraged her to start building a portfolio. It wasn't easy. Emily was a perfectionist, and she often found herself reworking pieces over and over again until they matched the image in her mind. There were nights when she stayed up late, her room lit only by the glow of her desk lamp, as she carefully added the final touches to a painting or sketch. Her friends admired her talent, but they didn't always understand her passion. They would often tease her for spending so much time on her art instead of joining them for parties or other social activities. "Emily, you're going to turn into a hermit," they would joke, but Emily didn't mind. She knew what she wanted, and she was willing to make sacrifices to achieve it. In her junior year, Emily entered a regional art competition. She had never participated in a competition before, and the thought of putting her work out there for others to judge was terrifying. But Mr. Carter encouraged her to take the leap. "You've got nothing to lose, Emily. This is a chance for you to share your art with the world." Emily spent weeks working on her submission. It was a large, intricate painting that depicted a scene from her childhood, a memory of a summer day spent by the river with her family. The colors were vibrant, the details painstakingly precise. When she finally finished, she felt both relief and pride. No matter what happened, she knew she had done her best. The day of the competition arrived, and Emily's heart raced as she walked through the doors of the exhibition hall. The room was filled with art from students all over the region: paintings, sculptures, photography. It was intimidating, but also inspiring. As she walked through the aisles, taking in the incredible talent around her, she couldn't help but feel a sense of belonging. This was where she was meant to be. When the winners were announced, Emily's heart nearly stopped when she heard her name called for first place. The applause that followed felt surreal, as if she were in a dream. As she walked up to accept her award, her hands trembling, she couldn't believe what was happening. It was a moment she would never forget, a validation of all the hard work she had put in over the years. The victory gave Emily the confidence she needed to pursue her dreams more seriously. She began researching art schools and preparing her portfolio for college applications. Her parents, always supportive, helped her with the process, and her teachers provided guidance and feedback on her work. When the acceptance letters started arriving, Emily could hardly contain her excitement. She had been accepted to several prestigious art schools, including her top choice, a renowned institution known for producing some of the most successful artists in the country. It was a dream come true, but it also meant leaving behind everything she knew. Moving to the city for college was both exhilarating and overwhelming. Emily had grown up in a small town, and the bustling streets and towering skyscrapers of the city were a stark contrast to the quiet, familiar surroundings of her childhood. But despite the initial shock, Emily quickly adapted. She found inspiration in the city's vibrant art scene, from the street murals to the galleries that lined the avenues. College was a transformative experience for Emily. Surrounded by other passionate and talented artists, she thrived. Her professors challenged her to push the boundaries of her creativity, to explore new techniques and ideas. Emily experimented with different styles, blending realism with abstract elements, and her work began to take on a unique and distinctive voice. But college wasn't without its challenges. The workload was intense, and there were times when Emily felt overwhelmed. She struggled with self-doubt, comparing herself to her peers and wondering if she was truly good enough. But every time she felt like giving up, she would remind herself of why she started in the first place. Art wasn't just something she did, it was a part of who she was. In her final year of college, Emily was selected to participate in a prestigious art exhibition. It was the first time her work would be displayed to the public on such a large scale, and she was both excited and nervous. She spent months preparing for the event, pouring her heart and soul into every piece. The exhibition was held in a grand gallery in the heart of the city, and on opening night, Emily could hardly believe her eyes as she walked through the doors. The gallery was filled with people, artists, critics, collectors, all there to see the work of the next generation of great painters. Emily's pieces were displayed prominently, and as she watched people stop and admire her work, she felt a deep sense of fulfillment. This was what she had worked for, what she had dreamed of for so long. The exhibition was a success, and Emily's work received praise from critics and fellow artists alike. She even sold several pieces, marking the beginning of her professional career. But more than the accolades or the sales, what mattered most to Emily was the realization that she had stayed true to herself. She had followed her passion, despite the challenges and the doubts, and it had led her to where she was meant to be. After graduation, Emily moved into a small studio apartment in the city. It wasn't much, just a single room with a bed, a tiny kitchen, and a large window that let in plenty of natural light, but it was perfect for her. She spent her days painting, her nights sketching, and her weekends exploring the city's art scene. Slowly, but surely, her work gained recognition. She was invited to participate in more exhibitions, and her paintings were featured in galleries across the country. Emily's career flourished, but she never lost the joy she found in creating. Every time she picked up a brush, she felt that same excitement she had felt as a child. Sitting at the kitchen table with her crayons, her art continued to evolve. Reflecting her growth as both an artist and a person, she found herself drawn to new themes: identity, memory, the passage of time, and her work became more introspective, more layered. Years later, Emily stood in her studio, staring at the large canvas in front of her. The sunlight streamed through the tall windows, casting long shadows across the wooden floor. Her studio had grown over the years, now filled with canvases, sketches, and paints of every color. Each piece told a different story, a chapter in the long journey she had taken to get here. Emily was now a well-known name in the art world. Her work had been featured in major galleries across the globe, and she had even held solo exhibitions in some of the most prestigious cities for art: New York, Paris, Tokyo. Critics praised her ability to blend realism with abstract elements, creating pieces that were both visually stunning and emotionally resonant. She had developed a signature style, one that was uniquely her own, and collectors sought out her paintings for their private collections. But despite her success, Emily remained humble. She often thought back to the small town where she grew up, where it had all begun. She remembered the quiet afternoons spent sketching on the porch, the encouragement of her teachers, the unwavering support of her parents. They had believed in her, even when she doubted herself, and for that, she was forever grateful. Emily also never forgot the challenges she faced along the way. The late nights in college when she questioned her talent, the rejections from galleries that didn't see her potential, the loneliness that sometimes came with being an artist. But each obstacle had made her stronger, more determined. She knew that art was not just about talent, it was about persistence, about staying true to your vision, even when the world didn't always understand it. One day, as she prepared for another major exhibition, Emily received an invitation from her old high school. They were hosting a special event to celebrate the achievements of former students, and they wanted Emily to come and speak to the current students about her journey as an artist. The invitation brought a flood of memories, and Emily felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. It had been years since she had returned to her hometown, but she knew this was an opportunity she couldn't pass up. When the day arrived, Emily made the trip back to the small town she once called home. As she drove down the familiar streets, she couldn't help but feel a sense of nostalgia. The town hadn't changed much. The main street still had the same shops, the park where she used to play was still there, and the school looked just as she remembered it. Standing in front of the auditorium filled with students, Emily felt a wave of emotion. She saw herself in those young faces, the same curiosity, the same hunger to create. She spoke from the heart, sharing her story with honesty and openness. She talked about the importance of following one's passion, about the need for perseverance, and about the value of staying true to oneself. After the talk, a young girl approached Emily. She had wide eyes and clutched a sketchbook to her chest. "I want to be an artist too," the girl said shyly, "but sometimes, I'm afraid I'm not good enough." Emily smiled, seeing herself in the girl. She knelt down to meet the girl's gaze and gently said, "I felt that way too, but the most important thing is to keep drawing, to keep creating. Don't worry about being perfect. Just do it because you love it, and everything else will fall into place." The girl's eyes lit up with hope, and Emily knew that she had made a difference, just as her teachers had done for her all those years ago. As Emily drove back to the city, she felt a deep sense of fulfillment. She had come full circle from the little girl who loved to draw, to the successful painter who was now inspiring the next generation. She realized that her journey as an artist was never really about the fame or recognition. It was about the joy of creation, the connections she made with others through her art, and the ability to express herself in a way that words never could. In her studio, Emily continued to paint, her work evolving as she grew older. Her life was rich with experiences, each one adding depth to her art. she found herself exploring new themes, reflecting on her journey and the world around her. Her paintings became more introspective, each one a meditation on life, love, loss, and the beauty of the everyday moments that often go unnoticed. Years passed, and Emily's name became synonymous with artistic excellence. She received numerous awards and honors, but what mattered most to her was the knowledge that her work had touched people's lives. Her art was displayed in museums and private collections, but it was also found in the homes of ordinary people who found comfort and inspiration in her paintings. Emily never stopped learning, never stopped growing. She believed that art was a lifelong journey, one that was never truly complete. There were always new stories to tell, new emotions to explore, new ways to see the world. And so, she continued to create, driven by the same passion that had fueled her from the beginning. In the end, Emily Johnson was more than just a great painter. She was a storyteller, a visionary, and a woman who had dedicated her life to the pursuit of beauty and truth. Her art lived on, a testament to her talent, her perseverance, and her unwavering belief in the power of creativity. And as she stood in her studio, brush in hand, staring at the blank canvas before her, Emily knew that the journey was far from over. There were still so many colors to mix, so many lines to draw, so many stories left to tell, and she couldn't wait to begin. If you liked this story, subscribe for more.